Hi, I'm Scott Jacobs, partner and wealth advisor at WRP Wealth. One of the most common things we see with successful professionals is that they've worked hard, they've saved, they've invested, and yet everything still feels a little disconnected. There's money in different places, decisions happen in isolation, and no real system tying it all together into a strategic and cohesive vision. That usually isn't because they did something wrong, but because most people are taught to think about finances one decision at a time instead of as a coordinated plan. And we understand that because most people are taught that wealth management is mainly about investments and performance. But in real life, the families we work with tend to feel more confident and aligned when they focus on something different. They're goal-focused and they're planning-driven, not headline-focused and performance-driven. They want to make good decisions, especially when life starts getting more complicated. So in this video, I want to talk you through two things. First, the kind of families we tend to work with best. Second, what to expect from an introductory call and the process after that so you can decide whether it's even worth taking the next step, whether it's with us or someone just like us. We're based in the Bay Area, so naturally, we work with a lot of tech professionals and executives. We also work with small business owners, people approaching retirement, people who are recently retired, and families who are thoughtful about tax planning and long-term decision-making. A meaningful portion of the families I personally work with are part of the LGBTQ community as well. But what matters more than job titles or zip codes is this. The families who tend to benefit most from this kind of relationship don't treat us like a place to park money. They treat us as a year-round resource, a place to pressure test decisions, a place to think clearly, a place to run scenarios, a place to ask questions before making moves. These are the families who call and say, should we lease or buy? We're considering a big renovation. Does it fit the plan? This is a high-income year. Should we look at tax strategies? We're thinking about helping an aging parent. How does that affect everything else? They don't feel like they need to figure everything out alone, and they rely on us for structure, perspective, and coordination. A lot of families also value the fact that we operate in the real world. We do financial planning, wealth management, and tax coordination. But life doesn't always stay in neat categories. Sometimes you need an employment attorney. Sometimes you need an estate planning attorney. Sometimes you need a mortgage professional. Other times you just need help thinking through who should even be involved in a decision. The families who do best with us are the ones who use those resources. They don't worry about whether a question is too small because no question is too small if it affects your life. It's also important to say this clearly. If someone's purely headline-driven and short-term performance-focused, they're often not a great fit for how we work. And here's what I mean by that. If your main goal is to outperform the S&P every year, you're probably going to be disappointed no matter who you hire. There will be years when any strategy outperforms, and there'll be years it doesn't. Markets do what markets do. What we can actually focus on is something different. Your planning, your behavior in volatile markets, your tax coordination, your concentration risk, your long-term goals. That's the work. If you schedule an introductory call with us, the first thing you should expect is education. Not a pitch, not a sales process, just education. There are firms that only do financial planning. There are other firms that only manage money. And then there are firms like us that do planning and asset management together in coordination with the rest of your professional world. Part of this call is helping you understand those differences so you can make an informed decision. Then when we ask questions that often have nothing to do with investments, do you have a CPA you like and trust? Do you have an estate plan in place? Are your beneficiary designations updated? Do you have parents that you may become financially responsible for? Do you have children? Are there major transitions or expenses coming up? Because real planning happens across all of that. It's not pick a few funds and hope for the best. And during that call, I'm also trying to answer a very simple question. Can we genuinely be helpful and add real value here? Because sometimes the honest answer is no. And if someone already has a solid financial plan, strong tax support, a clear estate plan, good diversification, and plan they understand and follow, we may not be a right fit. And we'll tell you that. Our goal at the end of the call is simple. Either it feels like time well spent and you move on, or it feels like time well spent and you want to learn more. If that happens, the call serves its purpose. If it makes sense to continue, the next step is what we call an Explore Fit meeting. This is not a commitment to hire us. It's exactly what it sounds like. You're exploring a fit with us, and we're exploring a fit with you and your family. Before that meeting, we ask for a short, confidential profile and a few planning prompts that gives us more context about what matters to you, what you're thinking about, what decisions are on the horizon. It takes about 15 minutes. And part of the reason we do this is because real planning requires engagement. In the Explore Fit meeting, we walk through a structured agenda to show you there's a system here. We're not improvising, we're not reacting, we're not guessing. We talk through priorities, planning areas, blind spots, coordination, and what the relationship would look like if we moved forward. We're also transparent about compensation because that's part of evaluating a fit. The simplest way to think about the fee is, does the value of the relationship feel meaningful relative to the cost? And value shows up in different ways. Sometimes it's clear decision-making. Sometimes it's tax coordination. Sometimes it's seeing blind spots you didn't know you had. Sometimes it's saving time, reducing stress, and simplifying complexity. The point is, this should feel like a value decision, not a pressure decision. Intro call, Explore Fit, then if it makes sense, we move forward. If it doesn't, we tell you that too. I've seen what happens when people choose poorly or delay planning because they didn't know what to look for. They choose based on one factor, one box, one convenience point, and later realized they didn't have structure, planning, or real coordination. The cost isn't always financial. Sometimes it's lost time. Sometimes it's missed opportunities. Sometimes it's decisions that get harder to fix later. Planning can give you time, and time can give you flexibility. For me, this work isn't transactional. There isn't a professional Scott and a personal Scott. I get deeply involved with the families I work with and serve. I show up in their lives. I walk through major transitions with them. That's the kind of relationship I believe planning should be built on. If this approach resonates and you'd like to see whether there's a fit, we'd be happy to have an introductory conversation about what matters to you, what questions you should be asking, and whether we can be genuinely helpful. If we can't, we will tell you that too.